Welcome to How to Run Profitable Retreats podcast, the podcast that guides you not to only host retreats that thrive financially, but also transform people's lives. I'm your host, Lainey Cavazos, and each week I bring you the best strategies and personal insights to help you create retreat experiences that transform lives, both your clients and your own. In our journey together, we'll dive into the secrets behind successful retreats, from crafting a unique atmosphere to mastering the logistics that ensure profitability. Whether you're tuning in for inspiring interviews with leading retreat experts or seeking actionable advice in our solo episodes, this podcast is your go-to resource for turning your retreat visions into reality. Don't miss out on any of our episodes and subscribe now. For more tools and a free guide on creating your own six-figure retreat business, visit theretreatplanner.com. Now let's get started and make your retreat dreams come true. Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of How to Run Profitable Retreats. I'm your host, Lainey Cavazos, and I'm so excited to have Louise McDonnell here today with us. She is the founder of Sell on Social Media, right? Sell on Social Media. And today we're going to be talking about how to run ads. But the reality is that her business is not just about running ads, it's about how to sell on social media in general, right? In like the over holistic approach. So we're going to be bringing in all those conversations and topics. But I know everyone here in the audience is always wondering, oh my gosh, ads, should I not? Maybe you tested it in the past and you lost a lot of money, or you got so many messages from bots and you were like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen here? Like no one is replying. Why am I spending my money here? Or maybe you had a great success and you're like, yeah, I want to keep doing that. Or you're like, I see big people actually using ads. Would that make sense for my business? Am I ready for ads? So stay on with us because we're going to have this beautiful conversation. Louise, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me, Lenny.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. So let's just talk a little bit about the space in ads. And I know we were having a little bit of a conversation behind the scenes and everything, but I want us to for you to give us a little bit of an idea of what running an ads campaign means for a business, right? What is it? Why ads? And what is the benefits of running ads and selling on social media?
Yeah, so Lenny, I would say anyone who's really serious about using social media in 2024, heading towards 2025 to grow sales and leads for their business, you really need to consider using paid promotions. And that's simply because organic reach it's on the floor. So organic reach around the world can be 5 or 10%. Yes, you can create some really good content and potentially go viral, but the whole thing is you can't control it. So you could have a post one day that performs exceptionally well, and then you have a post the next day that you really need people to see because it's about your upcoming retreat or something you're trying to sell, and that doesn't perform so well. So I always say you can't run your business on hope. You can't cross your fingers and go, I really hope people see this. I really want them to see it. And a way that you can control what people see is that if you pay to get that message in front of them. And in my experience, people say, but paid ads don't work. They do work. Paid ads won't work, first of all, if you're running the wrong ad and expecting a different outcome. So there's 13 different types of ads you can run on Facebook and Instagram. And by the way, if you know how to run an ad on Facebook and Instagram, you'll pretty much figure it out on TikTok and LinkedIn as well, because they use all pretty much this, it looks so similar behind the scenes. So, there's 13 different types of ad. If you're running the wrong ad, if you're running an ad for a video view, but you're expecting people to contact you or fill out a lead form, you're running the wrong ad. Or if you're running ad for a lead, but you're really hoping people watch your video, well, then you're not going to get video views because you've run an ad for a lead. So when it comes to ads, you can only have one goal. And there's 13 different types of goals. And if you select the wrong goal, you're going to get the wrong outcome. So that's the first starting point, So there's so many different types of ads that you can run. And then, Lenny, you know this as well. Your ad has to be persuasive. So if you put up poor quality copy, poor quality media, images or video, and you don't get the attention of your ideal customer, or you don't persuade them to take the action you want them to take, that's not going to work either. So there's so many factors which go into if an ad campaign will be successful or not. But to answer your question, yes, if you can pay to get in front of your ideal customer with a persuasive message, with a very strong call to action, and you're tracking how it's performing right through to what the results you achieve, it's definitely worth it.
Mm. I love this. And I really have to say, you're so right. And I'm going to share this like story from like my business, right? So last year, like, yeah, it's going to be almost like a year in November. Like, and I actually started happening in October. I used to have this way to gather like hundreds of people to come to my like challenges, right? On how to like run like profitable retreats. And it was called 5 days to sold out retreats. And people loved it, right? Like I had 100% retention rate and whatnot. But I had one, like mainly there was a one couple of ways on how I would get people to sign up into my lead magnets. And usually it was from Facebook groups, right? So I had paid memberships instead of Facebook groups. And then those posts performed absolutely amazing. And then I would get the people, right? So it was not paid ads. I was still paying something, right? But it worked very, very well. And then suddenly the group actually started growing from like 700,000 people. So it's a big group to 800 and something. And suddenly my post that worked like wonders, right? Like I'm talking like 116 messages in like 1 hour, nothing. It died, right? And I was like, okay, like what do I need to do here? How do I need to change this? Because this is no longer working. I tested it a couple more times. I changed the profile. I was like, maybe it's my profile who's being kind of like, put in the shadows by Facebook or whatnot. Sometimes you don't know. So I went through like the process, and I have to say, like, only until recently that I actually changed the post. That's when I was like, it started working again. But the other one, I tested it again. It's not working. It's not landing. People are not seeing it. People are not engaging. Whatever it is, the messaging might be like changing. We also need to understand that, like, all the social channels are always changing the algorithms and the rules. And I know that nowadays you cannot like people are removing posts that say like any like you can make 100K here, right? Like before in ads, like in Google ads, for example, you could not put like money promise, right? Well, they're changing that also in posts inside of like Facebook. So I think it's about also like as I'm saying this, I'm just like reminding everyone in this message, it's a big beast. Yeah. Like if like and I think that's why people like you, Louise, who help people how to sell on social, it's so important because you don't have to be the expert on ads or the expert on selling on social in order for you to actually sell on social, right? You can actually hire someone and work with someone who's gonna be the expert, who's gonna spend every waking hour, maybe not every waking hour, because we're building businesses where we can do whatever we want. But like they will spend their time researching and updating themselves and knowing what's trending and what's not happening and what's working and what's not. Right. So I think that's a huge difference. Okay. Anyway, this is so interesting. So anyway, that was a little bit about like me, right? So how you cannot really like run your business on hope. I think it's so important. Also, I have to say, I've run many like multi-million dollar like ads campaigns with like my previous companies when I was working corporate. And I never was like the person who was like, I would read the reports, I would see if they were working, I would suggest adjustments, but I would not be like, let me just go behind the system and let me do it, right? Let me play with this. I wouldn't. And when I came back and I started doing like my business, I was like, well, I should go and test ads and see what has changed and if it's still working or not. And I did it as this experiment. And I have to say, it was a very expensive experiment. But okay, because I wanted to like test the things that were working before and then see if they were still working. And then like, of course, I got my answer. And it was perfect for me because I wanted to like not just come into the space and be like, oh yeah, let me just because this also happens. You hire someone to do ads and they don't know what they're doing. They tell you they know what they're doing. So because I'm kind of like also like to control stuff, that's why I did it. So I don't like it was money well spent for me, but I don't want other people to have to go through that testing phase. So anyway, let's just talk a little bit more about numbers. I love numbers, and like tell us a little bit about what do you consider like someone's campaign, and I know it's very, very difficult, but like if we're thinking about leads, let's forget about like video views and all the other different like targets. But if we're talking about leads, what would be like a number, like a cost per click or something that I know it can vary a lot, but usually to get someone into a like a lead magnet or a freebie would be in a space that sound like a range that sounds like, oh, this is not too expensive and it's not like maybe like super, super performing.
Yeah, so like as you've kind of said, it's really hard to generalize because it really depends on the topic. It depends on, how hot the topic is. It depends on how good the lead magnet is, how it depends on how good the copy is on the landing page, how good the topic is itself. It depends on whether the topic matches with the level that, like, so if you're targeting senior executives, but you then put out a lead magnet that's very much for beginners, then it's not going to work. So it's very hard to give an average cost per result. So what I would say is the most important thing, Lenny, is that if you're starting off, right, and if you're starting off from a very low base of brand awareness, so so if you're brand new, you've never done any ads before, you have very low organic reach, then you've got to give yourself time to build up some momentum. So I would even say before you start running ads for a lead magnet, you may want to run some awareness ads. So if you do some really good video content and you're really good at it and people like your videos and they watch them and you just need to get them in front of them, or if you do some really nice carousel posts, just put some money, put some budget behind those and get it in front of your ideal customer. Because here's like, and we all give out about the Facebook or the Meta algorithm, right? Because it pretty much slapped you on the wrist in the groups for no reason last year, as you said in your example. But there's one super amazing thing that I absolutely love about the Meta algorithm, and that's this, is that the retargeting on Facebook happens and Instagram happens automatically. So if you have been putting out, let's say you know that you're going to be running a campaign let's just make it easy here, in March, right? So from January onwards, you would start building some awareness out there with posts, with reels, with carousel posts that are going to impress your ideal customers. You're not selling to them, you're not trying to get them to take an action. You're just saying, look at me, this is who I am, and look at this amazing content that's going to help you out. And so you would put some money behind those, because what happens is the people that watch those videos, click on those carousels, screen or save your posts or comment on your posts or send your post to someone, so they engage in some shape or form with those posts. The algorithm knows, this person is interested in this content, and it's automatically going to retarget them in March when you put out your lead magnet. So that's like a very good tip. So it's a long game. It's a long game, and everybody, if you're listening, every month you should be spending some money getting in front of new people and warming them up. Because not only are you creating a warm audience for when you've got an important campaign to roll out, the second thing that you have is that you're also teaching the algorithm who responds to your content. And so they will learn the profile of the person who's most likely to respond. Now, here's an also important point. In that awareness content that you are creating, it needs to be linked to the campaign and the lead magnet that's coming. Because if there's a mismatch between what you're putting out, because you think, oh, this is on trend, this is cool, I'm going to put this because it's trending. But if that's not linked to what's coming in your campaign and your lead magnet, then the algorithm's going to learn the wrong person to target. So when you put your lead magnet out there, you want to be really sure that you're able to track the results. So but this is what you don't want to do. You don't want to create a landing page for your lead magnet. Let's say it's a cheat sheet or a guide or something, right? What you don't want to do is to run a traffic ad. So a traffic ad is a very common ad that people will run if maybe they're boosting from the newsfeed. A traffic ad is optimized for link clicks, and it's going to get people to visit that page. But it's going to get people to visit the page, and so Facebook or Meta thinks, okay, when I get people to visit the page, I've done my job. I've done an amazing job. I've done my job. I got 500 people to the page. Woohoo! Well, I'm fantastic. But actually, you don't want traffic. You want leads. So you need to say to Meta, I want people who are going to go to this page and sign up, and then they land on the thank you page. So actually the goal is that they get to the thank you page. So you say to Facebook, your job is to find me people who will click on this link, but end up on the thank you page. And that's a totally different ask. So once you do that, then you can track your cost per lead. So if you spent $1,000 or $2,000, how many leads came as a result? And then if you're directing those leads to a lead magnet, then you need to be able to nurture them through a sequence. So you eventually get, because it's not just good enough to get them on your email list and go, woohoo, that's great. You need to bring them somewhere else where they're going to take an action, and they're either going to book a call with you, or maybe you're going to bring them to a live event and they come to the live event. So let's say your lead magnet was bringing them to a live event. And let's say that when you have that live event, you need to know how many people registered, how many of people who saw the ad, how many people were there because of the ad. So you need to be able to track. So once they come on into your CRM, you need to be able to track, have a specific code associated with them, or a specific tag associated with them, so that you can track these people showed up live, watched the webinar, booked a call, gave me money, and then you can say I spent $2,000, but I made $20,000. But if you don't know, if you're not tracking, then you're never going to know.
Oh, Louise, you're speaking my language, right? Like tracking is so important. Like we were talking about this, right? Like I'm hosting this like women's summit in like November, and we had one in March, and like we're tracking all the time. Like we tracked, like we didn't put all the goals in place for the first one that we did to like I am co-hosting it, right? I've run summits in the past, but like I was like, we put some numbers and goals, but we didn't put for everything, right? So when we went and we reviewed, we were like, no, there's definitely things that we're missing on like tracking purposes. And now we did like our goals for the next one, and then we put our tracking numbers, right? And we're like already up, like the campaign has not even started, and we're already going through the process of like actually reaching more of those goals. But if you don't know what you're targeting, like what you're trying to get, it's very, very hard. Right. And I think you make so much sense. And as an example, I can share this. So for the summit as well, we ran an ads campaign that actually started with a $23 cost per lead. $23. That's a lot of money for any of you listening, right? $23 cost per lead. And really, it was a free event, and there was like upsells, and we had an 8% upsell rate, right? So for $97. That means like definitely the upsell was not making the money to pay for the ads or for anything. Yeah. And we were like, okay, so we have a person who's running the ads for us, because like honestly, like I don't want to be the expert on ads. So this beautiful person said, like, he went and he checked our funnel, right? And he was like, you need to create a separate thank you page. That's it. We created that separate thank you page, just like you were saying, Louise, right? And I don't know what he did inside of the system, what he changed. I have no idea, but he went and he changed it. And because of this secondary thank you page that was built, guess what? We dropped the cost per lead to $2.5.
Okay, two things there, Lenny, right? Two things there. It goes back to the example I gave earlier on about the difference between traffic and conversion. So there's there. Remember I said earlier on there's 13 different types of ads. Well, one of those types of ad is a traffic ad. So people who tend to respond to a traffic ad have lower intent, and that's why you were getting traffic to the page but not the signups, because their intent was to visit the page, not to sign up. And I don't know how the algorithm knows this, but I've seen it over the years, time and time again. So I just know
well, the algorithm is smart. Very, very smart.
So when your ads person was completely right to do it, they were saying, so by setting up the second page, what they were actually doing was setting up a custom conversion. So they were able to run a conversion ad. So then the algorithm was getting person with the right intent to the page who were going to take that action. And here's another thing. The closer you get to the cutoff date for your event, so you wouldn't want to be running ads any further out than about 10 days from an event, because the further out from an event, it's kind of tricky because the algorithm has to learn. So it goes through a learning phase. So even like 10 to 14 days out, but for me, that's a long time away from an event. You have to then remind people so they don't forget that they've signed up. But the 24 hours or 48 hours before an event, the cost per lead will drop significantly because people like to fear of missing out last minute. They just tend to respond more then. So sometimes when you're running a campaign for leads, for like to get people to an event, you could be looking at the cost per results and pulling your hair out going, oh my God, that's so high, that this is terrible. But then you got to wait. You have confidence in yourself and wait, because normally the cost per result will drop the last 48 hours.
Yeah, as long as you have pieces of the ads and everything together, and people want it and whatnot, right? Let's put this caveat out there for all of you who are amazing listening to this episode, because it is true. Like, yes, the numbers can drop, but I think it's important for us to know, like, in this space of like, if people are not interested, or your title, what you're offering is not working, like, I'm running now on like putting ads behind a paid product. Like, it's a low ticket product, right? I've been testing that product with different prices, like different like audiences and whatnot, in an organic way for, I would say, over a year. And I know it performs. I know I tested the titles, I tested everything. I know what works now. So I know I can go put ads behind it, and it's just going to be like, it's going to start selling and selling and selling and selling, because I've tested it. I know that if I charge $27 or $47, it makes no difference to the buyer. Like, there's a $20 difference there, right? I mean, this is like what happens when you actually test things and you make sure that if they're working or not.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, when this program was like on a 17, like on the test of the 17, this is why it took me a while, because I wanted to like, I really tested all the phases, right? When it was on 17, it was not really selling. People were like, this is too cheap for it to be good. You know what I mean? So on 17, it did not sell. When I moved it to 27, started selling. And then when I moved it to 47, it kept selling on this. It had the same conversion rate than on the 27. So
Right.
if you're not testing things on your business,
yeah,
maybe like leaving $20 on the table per sale.
Exactly. And that goes back to the point I made earlier on when you asked me what's the cost per lead. It's like you would have a really good idea now when you're running an ad what to expect, because you've done all that testing. And you can't get away from that. You can't just start a campaign and just know what the result is going to be, because you have to kind of go through that testing phase yourself. And then you got to optimize. So you'll do things like, you look at it if your ad is performing. So we're talking about cost per results, but I look at other things like, what's the click-through rate? So, how many people are actually clicking, not even the link click, but how many people are clicking on the ad to read it? Because if your click-through rate on the ad is really, really low, then it's an indicator that your ad creative, either the words or the images or videos that you're using, you need to work on them. If you have a high click-through rate on your ad, but you're not getting the leads, then it's your landing page or your web page or wherever you're bringing them.
Yeah, so you can find where the problem is.
You got to find where the problem is, and then you got to go fix it. And that's for every single stage of your funnel. Like, you could get like 1,000 leads and then bring them to a live event where you don't give a good performance or you don't have a good offer, and then it doesn't matter anything, because you haven't converted. But it wasn't the ad, or it wasn't the lead magnet, or it wasn't the email sequence, or it was actually the event.
Yeah.
So we call this leaks in our funnels. So again, there's so many places that you can link, but the only thing is, and you mentioned it earlier on, Lenny, and I love it, that you said you did an event and now you're doing the second one, and this time around it's performing so much better. And that's because you're benchmarking. You already know, this is what we did the last time, where can we improve the performance? And every time you do it, you're going to get better.
Oh yeah. I love, like, I'm like, I have my whole like style of like how I want, like how I like people that run ads for me to like actually give me the results, because then I can see ad per ad, I can see what was tested, because we test images, right? Then we test text with like, so we test them separately to see which is the image, the one performing, or is it the text, right? So I know it sounds very complicated for a lot of you who are listening to this episode, but if you're like, for me, I find it very interesting, right? I find it exhilarating to like understand people's behavior. It really comes from this like geeky piece of me that wants to know how people behave and how people purchase and all, all this information. But yeah, there's so many ways how you can actually like lose money on ads. And just as a last topic, I want us to like bring this into the space of retreats, because I know most of the people listening to this podcast are interested in running retreats or have run retreats in the past, and you just want to go deeper into the knowledge. So we're gonna like put an example here of some like numbers that could be numbers for people, and then we're gonna like kind of like review a little bit these numbers to see the cost per lead on like retreats. First of all, as a like high warning, and Louise and we spoke about this earlier, is you do not want to do direct sales ads for retreats. They're high ticket. Yeah. They're high ticket. You're thinking about $2,000, or okay, maybe $400 if you're in like a low ticket kind of like space for retreats. But you're talking about maybe $10,000. Like, how many people would you need to have a conversation with if you're like, or if you're taking them directly to the purchase, the page to purchase, right? And I've done this in the past. I ran like a lot of money. Like I ran the two similar campaigns, same target market. Again, I was testing, right? One direct purchase for a $400 kind of thing, and then the other one was like for people to get into my email list. Guess what? I got, I think, zero sales from the page where you could actually go buy directly, because they didn't know me. They didn't trust me. They needed more time to like spend with me.
And Lenny, that's the biggest mistake that I see people making, is
Yeah.
that they send people directly to a purchase page, and they're selling cold traffic to a purchase page when there's no like trust factor. So
Yeah.
you're dead right. That just you can test it, but it won't work.
Yeah. So yeah, I tested it because my clients were like, "Oh, but what if I just put ads directly?" And I'm like, "No, it doesn't work." So I was like, "I'm gonna show you." So I went and tested it, and I put money behind it, because that's the way I do things when people come and work with me to learn how to create a six-figure business for retreats, right? It's not about just like, "Oh, yeah, it's like butterflies and this could work." It's like, no, no, no. Let's get our hands dirty and let's go figure this out. But anyway, so let's just put these numbers out there, and they might or might not come from some real information. So imagine you are selling a retreat, and you put like you end up, maybe you don't put it, you end up spending $3,000 running ads, right? And from those $3,000, you get 400 leads. We won't go into the details of like where does it come, or if it's conversations or email marketing or nurturing campaigns or whatnot. And then from those, you speak to actually 50, right? So from $3,000, you get 400 people. From those 400 people, you get 50 people to talk to, right? So 50 people to talk to from 400 people is not, it's more, it's less than 24. It's like 15%, I think. I might need to get my.
I'm gonna have to do my calculator. So yeah, 12.5%, is it?
Yeah. Perfect. So 12.5%. And you have these conversations with 50 people, and then 12 people convert. So now your cost, like if you spend $3,000, and then please, all people who are not lovers of math, bear with me. I'm trying to make this super simple. You spend $3,000 and you talk to you get 400 messages. That means each message costed you $7.5. Yeah. Each conversation that you started cost you $7.5. In the spectrum of things, you might be like, "Oh, okay, that's not so bad. Like, it's okay, right? Sounds fine." Like, I like to have like cost per click or like cost per lead for around like $2, $3, but like 7.5. It's not 63. I've seen other cases with 63 cost per lead. I've had $20 for myself. Like, so don't worry. 7.5 is still okay. Now, out of those, you have 50 conversations. Yeah. And out of those 50 conversations, 12 people purchase. So really, your cost per acquisition would be the $3,000 divided by these 12 people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this means each client costed you $250 to get your cost per client acquisition, right? So we're going a little bit deep into the marketing space here.
Yeah.
So what happens here, right? And we had this, like, if you do
So
not
yeah.
this is your pricing, right? But anyway, tell us at least your
So
thoughts.
what you gotta think about there is that like it's $250 is your cost per acquisition. So without optimizing that funnel anymore, if that funnel continued to deliver at that level, those results, it would mean that whatever you're selling, so 250, like as I was saying, 12 signups, but what were you signing them up to? Was it a $1,000 or was it a $200? If it was a $200, like, well, then it's definitely not worth it. But if it was 2,000 or 10,000, then the question the advertiser needs to ask is, was that, am I okay with that cost per acquisition? And the other thing you would want to do is to factor into your pricing what the cost per acquisition is. So if you knew that it was a retreat and that $2,000 was the price point you had for that retreat, but then let's say you now are going to increase that to 2,250 because now you've got 250 for every seat on your retreat to go and find people to fill it. The thing that amazes me, Lenny, is that people don't think about building in a cost per acquisition into their ticket. Because how are you going to fill it if you don't have a budget? And the last thing you want to do is put yourself under so much pressure to try and find marketing spend that you potentially that you don't have, or that your marketing spend eats into your profit. That makes no sense either. The other thing that you need to think about is, what about the other? I can't do the maths now, so sorry, I have to take out my calculator. So those 50 people, what about those other, like those 400 leads? So and eventually you signed up 12. You still have 388 leads there.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, like I was saying earlier on, but where do the leads, where do they go? Like if it was a message on Messenger or on Facebook, I'm not a huge fan of that because I'd rather get their email address, because if I have them on my email list, then it's easier to nurture them. And so my favorite thing to do when I convert somebody is I go and see how they came onto my list. Was it from a paid ad? Was it from a joint partner? Was it from an event I spoke at? Where did they come onto my list and when? Because sometimes you find that some people will come onto your list, whether they say 3% are ready to buy right now. But other people could be sitting there for a few months and even a few years. And if they haven't unsubscribed, it means they're still interested. So that's how I would interpret those figures.
I love this, Luis. This is absolutely amazing because, yeah, really, it's all about like, okay, what do you do with all these other leads, right? They might not have converted immediately, but they could in the future. But it's
Yeah,
about where are you nurturing them?
exactly. So yeah, and what else do they need? Like, so whatever message you put out there in your ad resonated enough with them that they responded. And so, you have to acknowledge that, and that's what you need to take forward. You just need to bring them to the next step. So yeah, you're always going to get people who buy straight away. Then you get people who like already have 3 on the next one because they're like, I can't do it now, but I'm going to do it next time, which takes your pressure off, because next time you're running, you're like, oh, I've already started to fill the next one.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Like that, the 100%. I love this. So, Luis, this has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. And I know this is just like a tiny piece of what you do, right? So like I'm sure we can have like more conversation about how to sell on social in the future. So like if any one of you likes this episode, please like it below. Leave us a comment. If you want to have Louise back, just write it down, and then we'll make sure we bring her back on, because I think it's so important for people to learn how to sell on social. But for anyone who's like ready to find you and wants to just learn more about you and how they can work with you, where it would be the best place to go and have a chat or find out your services?
Sure. So you can drop me an email at louise@sellonsocial.media. You'll find me hanging out on all the socials. I'm there. I'm under Sell on Social M on Facebook and Instagram. And you'll find me under Louise McDonnell on LinkedIn. That's 2 N's and 2 L's.
Perfect. So we'll drop all the information below for all of you to get. But Louise, thank you so much for coming here on this episode. It's been absolutely wonderful. And I can't wait for start seeing everyone coming back and saying, oh my gosh, all the things that I've learned here, I can now go and implement. And how can I get more?
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you back next week for another episode of How to Run Profitable Retreats. Bye. Wow, what a great episode. If you like our podcast, How to Run Profitable Retreats, leave us a review and share it with a friend.